Hey guys, my name is Curtis Hall and I am host of the Square podcast. The Square is a sports podcast where me and my co-host, my father, dive into discussions centered around NFL and NBA topics. If you're looking to become a part of a community of sports fans that want to get in-depth analysis, check out our show on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever else you get your podcasts. And if you're looking to have direct discussions with me or other sports fans, check out our show on Twitter. It's at @the_SquarePod. Again, you can find the show wherever you get your podcasts, and we can't wait to see you there.
Welcome to Fandom Power.
The landscape at Marvel Comics has changed a lot since the company's near bankruptcy back in the 1990s. And today, while the sales of physical comic books continue to decline, the Marvel Cinematic Universe has become the highest-grossing film franchise of all time, having generated $22.59 billion US dollars at the global box office. And while the MCU's feature offerings have been a smorgasbord of yearly blockbusters, the Marvel television landscape has been, shall we say, a little less reliable. Partnerships with ABC Studios and Netflix promise shows claiming to be fully integrated with the larger framework of the MCU, but, like a promise made during an election year, the actual results haven't exactly lived up to the hype. But then, on January 15th, 2021, Marvel Studios released WandaVision, the first Marvel television series set well and truly at the center of the MCU. And for 9 episodes that span the gamut from subversive to spectacular, viewers were treated to a superhero project like nothing else we've ever seen before. And as of this recording, WandaVision has been wrapped up now for 2 weeks, and today we're going to take a look back at the series and find out if it lived up to our expectations. So, joining me today are my regular co-hosts Andy and Hank, and our special guest and friend of the show, Erik Swensen. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello.
Morning.
How's everybody doing?
Oh boy, it's a good day. The sun is out, the heat is on. The child is away with Auntie, and I'm not wearing pants yet.
Excellent. Excellent.
Nice pantsless Saturdays. So it's been a couple of weeks. The show's wrapped up. We've all had a chance to, I'm sure everybody watched it as it aired, but we've all had a chance to go back and sort of maybe revisit that. Certainly for the episodes that we've each sort of taken to cover. And anybody have any initial thoughts?
I just got to say, and you guys, I mean, Erik might not know this yet, but you both know, because I watched the first 5 minutes of it.
Yeah.
And sort of lost my mind on social media, and I don't know what I was doing. I don't know. I had a bad day, but I got to say that I think I told Andy that it was a garbage fire.
The words trash fire, I think, resonate.
I mean, retrospectively, I've never really been happier to be wrong about something.
That's a great way of putting it. I think it's going to come up here in the first episode. I think if you were subverted, and that word's going to come up quite a bit for me in this review, is if you were subverted, I think, within the first 2 episodes, you were either so like train wreck, I can't look away, fascinated, or you were so angry you checked out. It was subversive. And I did check out, and I only checked out briefly because my wife is a huge fan and is really good at calming me down in the real world anyway. But I have to admit that I didn't come in with any expectations, and I didn't come in with any. I mean, maybe I had expectations. I wanted superhero brawls in every episode, but don't we though?
Yeah, exactly. But I think it was. I hadn't seen a trailer. I had no idea where they were going. I hadn't heard any rumors, and when I was watching the first 10 minutes, thinking, okay, this is kind of groovy. This is a nice cold open, and then it just kept going, and I was like, all right, and having a bad day, whatever it was, but. Like I said, I was really glad that it. It was a long con.
I wasn't gonna watch it until Wes sat me down and was like, "Here, we're gonna watch the first 3 episodes."
Yeah.
Back to back to back.
Yeah.
And that by the time I got to the end of the third, I was like, I would not have made it this far. But I'm
Yeah.
glad that I
Without
did.
encouragement. I think a lot of fans, certainly the initial online, the deluge of fan or anti-fan commentary was just that. It was like, what the hell is going on here? And a lot of people just, I think there's still, anecdotally speaking, I think there's still a sizable portion of the Marvel fandom who are big MCU fans who probably, for that reason, still have not seen it through to the end. And quite frankly, as far as I'm concerned, you're doing yourself a disservice by not sticking with it.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's like exotic food where it's like my palate's not used to it yet. It's really enjoyable and I like it, but having watched the Winter Soldier show last night, I feel like that's more a burger and pizza for me, than like sushi. But I appreciate sushi. I really
That's right.
do.
Yeah. That's a great analogy too. I definitely like that. What about you, Andy? What are your initial thoughts about the series?
It's a slow burn for sure, but that fire builds.
It doesn't it though?
It does. It gets huge.
Like an Indian curry.
Well, guys, what do you think? You want to get into the episodes and talk about those a little bit?
Let's do it.
Okay, so let's start with episode 1. Episode 1, it's called Film Before a Live Studio Audience. And this one is a hybrid amalgamation of The Dick Van Dyke Show and I Love Lucy. It was released Friday, January 15th, and it came out, the first 2 episodes dropped, I think, on the same day, and then it was once a week every Friday for the next 8 weeks after that. I think that's why I got confused with 8, because it was 8 weeks, 9 episodes. So this one is actually written by Jack Schaefer, whose proper name is Jacqueline Schaefer, if you didn't know that. She's the uncredited co-writer on Captain Marvel and the co-writer for the upcoming Black Widow film.
Nice.
It is directed by Matt Shackman, who's a former child actor appearing in the Growing Pains spin-off Just the 10 of Us between 1988 and 1990, as well as a few one-off appearances on shows like The Facts of Life, Highway to Heaven, Different Strokes, Night Court, Good Morning Miss Bliss, and Webster. If you're not familiar with his work, he's directed several episodes of Ugly Betty, a few Game of Thrones episodes, as well as episodes for The Boys. So, what a synergistic marriage of skills, both sitcom and superhero action and epic pieces to fold together into WandaVision. So, I don't know if you could find another director with that resume specifically to marry those things together, but I think he's pulled it off quite well. So, episode synopsis. Touch on this for a second. We talked about in our last episode of Order 66, Hank, where you were post-show were saying, like, wouldn't it be fun to write our own episode synopses?
It's true.
So I have done just that.
Nice.
I have done just that. I have not cut and pasted. I have not copied. This is Wes's, if Wes was writing TV Guide, this is what it would say. Our episode synopsis is, Westview's newest residents, Wanda and Vision, are settling down for a quiet life. But their super secrets are at risk when Wanda gets a visit from nosy neighbor Agnes. And when the couple's wires mistakenly get crossed, Wanda and Vision unexpectedly have to host the perfect dinner party for Vision's new boss. Can the couple pull it off and still keep a lid on things? So yeah, there's my
Nice.
if I had to write it for TV Guide.
Fantastic.
So I guess I kind of wanted to approach it sort of broadly and sort of less beat for beat, and so I've attempted to do that. But I just I'm going to throw out a few questions and just kind of see where it lands with you guys, and then hopefully you guys will hit some of the things that I did, and if you didn't, I'll fill in the blanks with what I've got here for notes. But did you guys, with the first episode, did you find there was a prevailing theme at all? Like an overarching theme to the episode?
Certainly we were sitting in classic TV trope.
Yeah.
And after, on subsequent watches, I really understood that this was heavily driven by acting.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
And acting in the style, which is often hard. You especially modern actors, they grow, so you got to study period stuff and then pull it off. It's exaggerated. They were really good at capturing the timing,
Yeah.
and the style of acting, which actually helps solidify the illusion.
Props to Elizabeth Olsen for her job at
yes.
emulating Lucille Ball. I mean,
Yes.
for the record, she's 36 years old, so she's considerably younger. Well, maybe not younger than you, Eric, but significantly younger than you and I, Hank. So I certainly give. And Paul Bettany's 49, so he's right in our age group. And I don't know about you, but in my house, we grew up on I Love Lucy. Like, there was tons of I Love Lucy on in my house, with my mom being a huge Lucy fan. So I really picked up on her emulating that character.
No, I absolutely agree. And I think that's maybe the strongest thing that we get through all the episodes, if you will, is that their acting.
Yeah.
And acting is like more so, because action beats can take away from that. You don't have to be a great actor to slug it out in a cool, with cool CGI and stuff. But it just makes it so much stronger that it's a tour de force of acting, actually.
Big time.
And watching them evolve is incredible.
It needs to be mentioned that this is Elizabeth Olsen we're talking about, and her sitcom chops go all the way back to Full House when she was a little kid on that set. She's been around sitcoms all her life.
Yeah, there's some stuff later on in one of my episodes that there's definitely some meta Full House stuff going on there.
Oh, big time. Yeah. I noticed that too. So really, I'm going to jump ahead here for a second. Partway through the episode, I want to touch on the built-in commercial bit. The tagline in the commercial was "Forget the past, create the future." And for me, that is the theme of the whole episode, right? It's her way of building the fantasy. So, I mean, thematically, I feel like the theme is essentially her setting everything up where she's still very much, in a 12-step, she's still in denial. You know what I mean? So she's trying to control her environment because, as somebody who has some complex mental health issues, I know what it's like for me to have that feeling of like I'm in control of my life. So for me, that aspect of the episode, it resonated pretty strong with me, and that's kind of what I took away as the overall theme for this episode.
That commercial was also just loaded with Easter eggs and misdirects and
big time. I actually saved all my Easter eggs for the end because I feel like if I dove into Easter eggs right away, we'd still be talking about them in an hour from now.
Yeah,
it's true.
It took me like 2 or 3 times watching this episode before I could really appreciate it, just because, again, as the resident millennial, it's a lot slower paced. And, the static 3-camera sitcom kind of died during my childhood. So
yeah.
It resonated a lot less, but I can see where it's going from. And, being a student of comedy, I have an appreciation for that sort of thing. But again,
you would understand it on a different level, though, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my understanding is more of like let's cut it open and kill it and see what's inside of it.
Right. Like a true dissection of
sit back and observe.
Well, and that's just it. You walk a fine line when you're like, because nostalgia has a cutoff point for everyone. Like,
when you know how the sausage is made, it's a little less appetizing.
Right. And so as you blur the lines between those nostalgic cutoff points between generations, so it gets harder to interpret, or
exactly.
It's more static, or more, where Wes and I might have had a more emotional approach to it. You might have had a more analytical approach. And that makes sense in terms of the way nostalgia hits.
I think that also speaks to the, and I mean, God, why does this keep coming up? As at the expense of making an ageist comment, but that's just the point in my life where I'm at right now. I mean, I'm closer to 50 than I am to 40. And Eric, you're closer to 30 than you are to 40. So, I mean, that it totally lends itself to what you're saying, Hank.
Yeah, and it's neat. I never thought about it before, but it when I'm talking to the kids who work for me and I'm referencing something and they're looking at me like,
what?
Blink, 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 blink.
Yeah,
of course. The baby or something. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Right. So, and it's, but there are certain things that are timeless. Like you reference like Captain Kirk or Darth Vader or Spider-Man. There are things that just transcend.
Yeah, of course.
The levels of nostalgia.
Well, that's where the tropes come from. The whole backdrop of this episode is a very tropic thing. It's I need to impress my boss.
I don't think I've used the
everything
word.
goes wrong.
Yeah.
I've used the word trope so much.
I would say that is that is a hallmark of sitcom. It's like woven into the fabric of sitcom, where like, we've got to impress the boss. Like, I think every sitcom has that episode where the boss is on your back for some reason, right?
This is a TV show about a TV show being broadcast within a TV show. It's Turtles all the way down, man.
It's brain bending on so many levels.
But to dive into the making of this particular sausage,
some
of the points they point out on Assembled really dive down on just how far they went to create the whole,
far,
like from the camera to the actual in-house audience, so they could feed on that energy.
Yeah. One thing
detail is incredible.
I want to touch on that for a second, because that level of detail, as you say, Andy, was like mind-blowing for me. Did everybody watch Assembled before I get into this?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I hope they keep doing those, because the behind the scenes they've been giving us have been incredible. With this, The Mandalorian.
They're fantastic. And I mean, if you're not watching these making of extra specials that are on top of the show, please go back and watch them. You'll feel so
Disney
much better for doing so.
Extra show.
Yeah, really.
Extra show every time.
And it's better than just talking about the show like we do. They're putting it, because a lot of people are making extra shows about shows. But
they have a budget.
But no, it's fine. It's true. But the
attention to detail in this episode,
exactly, and what they're giving us is just a deeper cut of fan service.
Oh my god!
For like everybody at the end of the day is curious about how it's done, but very few people are like, I really need to know. I'll still watch the Star Wars documentaries about special effects,
of course,
over and over.
Yeah, of course. Setting up the studio to emulate a studio as it would have appeared in 1950 with the wooden deck chairs and the steel plumbing, the iron plumbing railings and stuff, just to make it feel like it was in the 1950s, to help the live studio audience. That's the other thing that got me, like
from the cameras to the lighting, everything is exactly
the
as
crazy
right
exaggerated
up until,
dress, like so that the tones in black and white would be correct.
Right up until I watched Assembled, I actually thought it was a laugh track. Even going back and rewatching my episodes to make sure that I was brushed up for what we were doing today, there's a few scenes where the laugh, which I thought was a laugh track, was cut off sharply. There was no fade out on the laughter. It was just whoop, and it was cut. So I'm like, it's a laugh track. And then Assembled comes along and it's like, no, it's not a laugh track. It's a live studio audience. But when you talk about the period dress thing, the first thought in my mind was, they've double-hatted all the extras for this episode to be the live audience when they're not on screen.
Yes.
What a great thing. What a great way to do it.
Yeah, and not leaking spoilers out or anything like that. No. And having the characters that are on the soundstage more intimately connected with the audience, because the audience people are dressed like period people.
Exactly.
So it's rather meta.
So this one,
less paperwork.
Yeah, well, that's true too.
Fewer NDAs.
Yeah, really, eh? So again, I know we touched on it briefly, sort of in the preamble and the initial thoughts, but like, let's talk about the subversiveness of this episode. Like, again, like, this was pitched as Marvel's first sitcom. And I don't know about you guys, but when I heard Marvel and the word sitcom in the same sentence, I didn't know what to make of that. And then you get that title card sequence, and it's the traditional, the Marvel Studios, dun 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 dun, and then what? Wait a minute. Why is the screen shrinking? Wait, where's the sound going? Black and what the hell? So when it dropped from the 16:9 to 4:3, I'm like, okay, there's something weird going on here.
I will say that I was more cognizant of that, because there are other points where the aspect ratio switches and the screen. Period. But because we caught that in The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
I'm super aware of it when I watch anything now.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen the Snyder Cut and it's 4:3 aspect ratio?
I have not.
It's got a strange ratio, man.
I haven't found 4 hours to spare yet.
I went and upgraded my Crave subscription just for it, so it's sitting there in my to watch list.
Yeah.
But I did do some reading, and I've stayed away from spoilers and people reviewing and trashing it because that's never going to end. But there is a explanation for the 4:3.
Okay.
So the 4:3 is IMAX.
Yes.
So there is some hope that this will get an IMAX release at some point, and it will look fine because it'll be on a 4:3 IMAX screen.
Damn.
But that is the reason for the 4:3. But still going to watch it. Still going to watch it on my widescreen TV and not and not care.
Hell yeah.
They go into theaters once the Backstreet Boys reunion tour is over.
Nice.
Backstreet's back. All right.
Guys, what do you think about the music in this episode?
Very period.
Very period.
Super period.
Yeah, no, it's a strong use of all the elements to keep you, because at the same time, one of the themes is that there's an illusion going on, although it's early in the story for that, but it helps create the illusion for us too. So the illusion exists in the reality of the show, and by keeping
the illusion about the illusion.
Right. So it's, they double down on that. So it's rooted, it's very strong.
It's well researched. I mean, I know there was a lot of there was some discussion in the assembled piece about how they actually sat down and spoke with Dick Van Dyke and sort of how did they do it, and his reply was, well, if you couldn't do it for real, you just didn't do it. So that explained a lot of the camera trickery and the wire work. But I didn't get their names. The gentleman and the lady that did all of the theme songs.
Oh yeah, with the WandaVision.
I was gonna, so I'm glad you sang it because now I don't have to. But I was gonna bring that up. That this is the first time we get that, and so the WandaVision bit. But fascinating that they wove that into every theme song, and I think I picked up on it in a couple of episodes. But then there's a lot of them where it's like it's buried pretty deep, so it's a blink and you'll miss it kind of thing. But cool that they have this continuous, consistent musical cue that applies to them in every episode, right?
Well, it just goes to show you that, again, made for TV music is a whole different beast. And I know that I can go back to my childhood and pick out. Oh, so there are still theme songs that I remember all the time.
Yeah.
A lot of the ones for this show could fit into that kind of vein.
Very much so. Andy's just showing me now. He's got a reference here. It's Kristen Anderson Lopez and Robert Lopez. I assume that they're a married couple. I would think so. Yeah,
potentially.
And they have some sitcom lineage in terms of their writing skills. So again, it's another one of those. It's kind of a match made in heaven kind of deal where you just get the right people for the right job, and you've got the recipe for the secret sauce, and it worked.
Yeah, it's awesome.
All right, let's get into more sort of the nuts and bolts of it here, guys. I want to talk about sort of the ups and downs, and I guess I'm just going to put it out there. What did this episode get right? What do we think was this is the standout. This is perfect. What do you think?
Certainly they subverted everyone.
Yeah, well, for
whether
sure.
you liked it or not, certainly they were expert at the subversion in this episode.
I agree.
There was one hook in there in that first episode on my first blush watch when I was at your place.
Yeah.
When they go into that cryptid horror sequence at the dinner table.
Yeah.
That was just enough for me, as somebody who never watched Dick Van Dyke, to go, oh, this is still a Marvel thing.
Yeah.
And that was what enabled me to mentally get past, this isn't my kind of TV.
I got to tell you.
Oh, there must be something coming.
I have some thoughts on that scene too. That actually was that made my notes, actually. That was my first cue. And talk about the subversiveness of the show. The show does a fantastic job at keeping you off balance in terms of who's really the villain here. And this is our first kind of cue to, is Wanda the fucking villain in this show? You know what I mean? she's getting.
Are we the baddies?
Well, this is it. She's getting pressured from Mr. Hart, and at some point she doesn't know what to do because she's still building the fantasy. Remember, and in order to shut him up, she chokes him. Like that's I don't know about you guys, but I'm going to use the D&D analogy, and that's pretty evil.
It's true. And she, not to skip ahead too far, but she does it again in the finale.
Well,
in a larger way.
Well,
and so I mean, it could be she's panicking. Let's
just without jumping ahead. I mean, let's keep in mind that she's kidnapped an entire town and held them hostage for a week.
No, it's true. If nothing else, she's morally ambiguous.
That's right. Point. So, like, talk about that subversiveness of the show. I mean, I would call that a really strong point of the series overall. And again, so the dinner table thing was sort of my first clue to like, oh, what's really going on here?
One of the things about the dinner table scene is the boss's wife.
Yes.
And I didn't write down the actress, but
that's Deborah Jo Rupp.
Of
Kitty Foreman.
It is, and that's my point, is that their use of actors that we've seen in sitcoms that lasted 10 years or 8 years
for sure, yeah,
reinforces the fact that because we recognize her as an actress.
That's right,
sort of first, right? So it really reinforces that there's an actress playing a part within a show, and it does serve like those little things, like David Schwimmer.
Oh yeah,
that stuff. That stuff really
exactly.
The idea that this is a TV show. Home.
Good times. Well, that also like is kind of how the through line of how we get into. That's the one. Like I said, that's the one thing that grabbed me and was like, all right, let's watch episode 2. And then there was another thing in episode 2 where it's like, okay, there's something here.
There was enough of a hook to keep you going.
Yeah, and representing the younger crowd, I feel that if that hadn't been there or hadn't been executed as well as it was, you'd have lost me.
Again, I found the overacting to be quite charming, and like we've already said, it's so period appropriate. I
just like it when they all talk like this.
Yeah, exactly.
It's amazing.
Golly, you settled in fast. Did you use a moving company?
Wow, Han. Anybody find it funny that Vision, the living computer, is really good at computational math?
What do we do here, Norm? We compute things.
Then what is the purpose of this company?
But for what? Well, for efficiency. Oh, okay.
It's true.
Yeah.
Which, again, kind of highlights if you go back to any of those old sitcoms and ask even the slightest question about logic, it all kind of crumbles apart. But that's not the point of it. Anyway.
I think sort of the last thing for me as a strong point for this episode, and I guess it applies equally to the next one too, because they're both 50s, 60s blurred. That's going to come up as well. It's a strong point, but it's also a weak point at the same time. That this episode actually tries to. It's a hybrid amalgam of I Love Lucy and the Dick Van Dyke Show. But those shows premiered a decade apart. So like the Dick Van Dyke Show is actually a 60s show, not a 50s show. And they tried to shoehorn this one squarely into the 1950s. But that was notwithstanding, that scene in the kitchen where the cupboards are flying open, dishes into his head, so well done. If you were to make having the budget, of course, that Disney has, of course it's going to be perfect. But like, you take all those old camera tricks and you marry that with modern CGI and you have the perfect execution of that. Like it couldn't have looked better in any way. As far as
one
I'm
thing
concerned.
I noted, and it sort of comes into focus while you say that, like there's sort of two trope shows that they meld together.
Yeah.
And what I noticed was like in episode 1, they start out strongly in the 50s.
Yeah.
They strongly with the I Love Lucy thing, and then they sort of slowly morph into the Dick Van Dyke Show.
They do, yeah, they really do.
So and what I'll get into too is in episode 2 is that they slowly start out with the Dick Van Dyke Show and morph into Bewitched.
Well, the whole two single bed thing is a hallmark trope of what you could show on TV in the 1950s.
I think all of the episodes, until we get really right into reality, are just made up of things, and they're slowly transitioning into one another.
some of the transitions are a little bit abrupt, but
yeah,
I agree.
There's true. 2 5-year time jumps.
That's true. So just on that note, like I said, it's a strong point for me, but it's also a bit of a detractor because I find and I'm just going to put the question out there, because these shows tend to be amalgams of, I guess it's not multi-genre, but multi-decade. Does that blending make the episode stronger, or is it diluted because it doesn't excel as a 50s episode, and it doesn't excel as a 60s episode either? It's somewhere in between, and I'm still undecided if that makes it stronger or weaker.
I think it makes it stronger, just because of your thoughts of it being like a 12-step. She's going through those steps. She's going forward.
Sure.
And they're visually showing you that forward momentum.
Right.
The other part of that is you're supposed to be a little bit unsettled by these episodes. So maybe the sort of disambiguation.
Yeah, I know the one you're talking about.
Discombobulation that you're sensing is intentional because, there's something not quite right going on. You're not quite feeling like it fits.
Oh, and I guess that just ties right back into the whole subversive nature of the show itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
The format is perfect, because if this were a novel, I never would have got past the first chapter.
Oh, it's like trying to read. It's like trying to read The Lord of the Rings. They spend 200 pages in, and we're still in the Shire. Bit of a slog.
Hey, listeners, take a shot every time you hear the word subversive.
Or trope.
Or trope.
All right. I'm. Anything else you guys want to touch on before I push on to the next one?
There's one specific Easter egg on that table.
I definitely have Easter eggs. I have a whole schmackety-wackety of them.
Oh, my.
Any other...
Pick your favorite.
Is there anything else in the episode that you guys think that was off, that they could have done better?
No.
Oh, good.
Yeah. For what it was great.
Yes. I mean, in retrospect, the execution is perfect. I would have preferred episode 1 to be exactly like episode 9.
Yeah.
Terms, I just want to knock down Slugfest. Amazing, fun ride all the time. But how we got there was very interesting, and in retrospect, I enjoy the ride.
All right, so let's talk about Easter eggs, and there are lots of them. I have a big list of them, but I don't necessarily want to read them out. So
sure.
Let's just go around and you guys can talk about the ones that you noticed. And if there's any that you missed, I'll fill in the blanks. So I'll start first. The 732 area code on the sold sign of the house during the opening credits is a real New Jersey area code that happens to be where Wanda and Vision settled down in the comics in 1982.
I did not. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and now I'll tie this one together. Here's another one for you. Westview, the town of Westview, all one word, does not exist. The town Westview, 2 words, does exist in New Jersey. It's a real place. Yeah. Close to another city called Leonia in New Jersey. So yeah, get the ball rolling with that. Who else has got an Easter egg they want to share?
I got to talk about that commercial, man.
The commercial, yeah, let's go for it.
The commercial. So,
Toastmate 2000. The right yeah, the Toastmate 2000.
So that blinking red light on the front of the Toastmate is supposed to represent the blinking red light on the Stark bomb that we see in episode 8.
That's right.
It also harkens back to Iron Man, the first MCU movie ever made.
Well, there's
a bomb drops in on Tony Stark, and the same light is there.
There's also a clear audio cue when she pushes the toast button down that you get the same power-up sound as one of Tony's repulsors. That.
Mm-hmm. And the last thing I want to say about that is, if you turn the toaster upside down, the numbers on it say 666.
Oh, I missed that. I totally missed that one.
Which is a misdirect allusion to Mephisto.
That's true, but is it a misdirect? Because that's, for me, I'm still not convinced.
They misdirected the entire series.
I'm still not convinced that he's not involved.
Yeah.
Have you seen the, and I got to bring this up, have you seen the interview with the creators? And it's on YouTube, and I should have
I have not.
Link, and I'll send it to you.
I'll have to see that link, yeah.
So they explained that they had to abandon plot lines because of COVID.
Oh, that's
the
fair.
The show was
totally fair.
12 episodes long.
Oh, wow.
And so there's like they abandoned several things, but not, they haven't abandoned them, but they've had to push them further down the road, and they will appear in other MCU stuff. But they just pushed it. We know that, but they didn't. They're just it's coming.
Well, and we're
supposed to.
This is the same thing. And that's one of the things.
Yes, they dropped the Enchantress.
The Jimmy Woo thing. Jimmy Woo is at Westview because he's actually working on a missing persons case. Who's he looking for?
Right.
They dropped, the theory is he was
Richards
looking for
reference.
The theory was he was looking for Ralph Boner, but we'll see.
That actually makes sense to me. That Ralph being surreptitiously murdered. Spoiler. But yeah, I'm gonna just I want to throw something else out there on the Toastmate thing because there's another layer here.
Yeah.
So there's Tom King did a run on the Vision comic book, and in that comic book, also famously, possibly influenced by the rebooted Battlestar Galactica, Vision is derogatorily referred to as a fucking toaster.
Do
you know what I mean? Like, so I mean, on a symbolic level, the toaster. So the toaster is a metaphor for Vision and the bomb, although it's a weird kind of connection there.
And I also think if you examine all the commercials, that there's an element. I think that there's they relate also to the Infinity Stones. Each one is a separate Infinity Stone.
Yeah.
I think that the light on the toaster is representative of the Infinity Stone that Vision holds.
Right.
And the second commercial, and I'll get into that, is the Hydra watch, which is
right.
And it does, the trope keeps going.
The Strucker
kind of catch. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right. Andy, you got one you want to share?
It might be a speculation one, but it does hold a spot in the comics when Agnes brings them a housewarming plant.
Oh, right.
It's quite possible that it's the Everbloom from Mount Wundagore.
Interesting.
Wow. The Cylons in Battlestar Galactica often referred to as toasters.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's kind of where I was going. I wonder if Tom King was influenced by that show when he did his run on Vision. I would have to double check that to see what years that was, but I feel it's relatively recent.
I would think so.
Yeah.
And did you guys?
That is a hell of a pull. Like, I didn't even think of that. That is well pulled.
Did you guys catch the alternate acronym for SWORD at the end?
I did not.
Yep.
So the MCU acronym for SWORD is Sentient Weapon Observation Response Division.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
While the comics, it's very subtle, but it's Sentient World Observation and Response Department.
Interesting.
The weapon is replaced for world.
Yeah,
okay.
SWORD is a space division in the comics.
Right, and so here they're a weapons division. And is Wanda a weapon? Vision certainly is a weapon.
Oh yeah, for sure he is.
Right.
That dovetails quite nicely. It fits in with the whole context of the show in general and kind of what Hayward is doing. So that totally makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So did anybody catch the calendar?
Obviously not.
So the calendar in the kitchen is marked with a heart, which is indicative of Mr. Hart. We find that out during the episode. But it's August 23rd. So August 23rd could be written as 0823, or it could also be written as 238. And if we were to interpret it as 238, it could be referencing Avengers number 238, which is a story in which Vision is similarly revived after a battle with Annihilus.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah.
Wes, you're the king.
The number games is one layer too deep for me. There are so many of them.
They have.
Yeah.
Oh,
I know
it's just a little too subtle.
I thought I went hard on my Easter eggs. That's beautiful, Wes.
Well, there's some other ones that were just so obscure that I'm like, I don't think that the casual viewer will appreciate it. So I'm I just leave it.
That's what we do.
Okay. So how about the cameo around Agnes's neck? And I don't mean cameo appearance. I mean the actual piece of jewelry that she wears.
No, it's true. And immediately it jumped to mind. Also, she's wearing a cape in this episode. Like a little half cape shawl in her fur.
Yeah, that's right. When she comes
So I immediately, I shouldn't say immediately, but it, by about the third episode, I was starting to recognize who that might be. And yeah.
All right. So I got quite a few. If you want to keep going, we can keep going on this one because there's a few more good ones.
Well, we're stepping a little bit long on episode 1. I just feel like I should mention.
Okay, well,
we should at least talk about the wine bottle, though.
Okay, so if you want to talk about the wine bottle, so
let's crack them off quick.
Okay, so let's go quick. Episode 1. Ralph Boner gets a name drop here when Agnes makes her reference to her never-seen husband, Ralph, when she says,
My husband, Ralph?
The only way Ralph would remember our anniversary is if there was a beer named June 2nd.
Oh, June 2nd is the date of the Salem witch trial.
June 2nd, 1692, the trial of Bridget Bishop begins the Salem witch trials. This could be a reference to both Agnes concealing her identity as a witch, or just a thematic reference for Wanda as the Scarlet Witch. However, it works on both levels.
Yes, sir.
Vision's necktie with the 4 dots in the rectangle looking like something out of an electrical schematic may be a visual cue to remind us that he is a machine.
Mm-hmm.
The wine bottle with the very prominent M on the neck is a bottle of Maison du Mépris, which translates to House of Contempt, a clear nod to the House of M storyline from Marvel Comics. Yeah, so as Vision hits the remote control for the TV at the end of the show and the frame shrinks down until he and Wanda are framed in a hexagon, it is our first reference to Wanda's hex powers. And as my...
Pretty sure remotes are not native to that time.
I wasn't 100% sure on that, but I wasn't going to argue it. It's neat. And this one is a cool one for me as a podcaster. At the very end of the episode, when the ambiguous person, who we find out to be Darcy Lewis, is sitting there watching the episode, she folds her sword notebook over, puts a pen down. Sitting on the table right beside her is the Rodecaster Pro podcasting mixer.
Excellent.
So I had to put that one in there as a podcaster. I thought, oh, neat little nod to a piece of cool, fancy sword tech, which really isn't all that fancy when you know what it is.
I'm glad I made you pause that screen.
Yeah.
When we were watching.
That's it, guys. That's all I've got for Easter eggs. And yeah, so I guess that's episode 1 in a nutshell. Anybody got anything else they want to add on to that before we move on?
No, that's pretty well thought.
Right on.
Amen.
You're listening to Fandom Power.
Who's up for episode 2?
Hank.
Oh,
Me. Episode 2. Don't touch that dial. It also aired on January 15th. They aired both the first 2 episodes the same night. Written by Gretchen Enders. I couldn't find any. She's definitely written other things in Hollywood. I just didn't recognize any of them.
Fair enough.
Directed again by Matt Shackman.
Yeah.
Same as the first episode. I also wrote sort of my own synopsis.
Nice.
It's not as long as yours. It's pithy. And then when I looked at their official synopsis, I was like, oh.
It's really close.
I just added more words.
Yeah.
Wanda and Vision struggle to fit into Westview society and plan a way to wow the town with a magic act for its annual children's fundraiser show. In the style of Bewitched.
I liked this episode. It was fun.
Yeah.
The magic show was fun.
I took your cues and I just thought we'd ask questions like, so prevailing themes.
Ooh.
And I thought, the sitcom theme is still very prevalent. And obviously it runs through, most of the episodes. And another theme is we're moving through time. And you can really see, and by the time we hit the 3rd episode, obviously, we're really starting to move quickly through time. And I think that's a theme of the entire overall show.
Right.
I Love Lucy's been replaced with Bewitched. It's obvious from the sort of the animated opening, which was, if anybody's ever seen that or you go back and see it, it's you could play them.
It's quite charming.
It's right. It's awesome.
It is.
And we've clearly jumped a decade, which is the idea is like we're in the 60s now, firmly entrenched in the 60s.
Oh, big time.
And more color, like the color red is a theme, and it's starting to bleed into the world in a few spots, and we'll talk about that in a little more detail. And also the trope of having a commercial embedded in your episode is returned.
On the Bewitched thing, like for all of the sitcom episodes, because we do get some more traditional MCU stuff towards the end, but for everything that is embedded within like show within a show, you can't help but acknowledge that Bewitched is pervasive through every episode just by the nature of her powers.
Certainly. Yeah, Wanda could be that character.
She could be Samantha.
It is the closest trope sitcom to what, if you had to pluck Wanda out of the MCU and pop her into 1960s reality, she would be the star of Bewitched. It's just, so it works really well. It's super meta.
Yeah.
Well, it's super duper meta because the episode itself is about them putting on a magic show.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Again,
turtles all the way down.
Do we meet Monica in this episode?
We do at the garden party.
That's right.
At the pool party, the preamble for the fundraiser.
But at this point, she's still Geraldine.
That's right. Yeah.
That's right. And I've sort of written my notes. They're kind of intertwined with my Easter eggs.
Sure.
So I don't know if my format's kind of a little different, but since we're talking about Geraldine, one of the things, she's wearing a pin on her jacket.
Okay.
And the pin is like a spiral. I wish we could almost freeze the show people, but it's like a spiral. Anyways, it looks exactly like Doctor Strange's wormhole magic.
Oh,
and so
really?
I think it's our first little indication that she's probably from another reality or from outside this reality.
What, like the sling ring portals?
It's just, yeah, exactly.
Okay,
exactly.
Okay, yeah.
Exactly.
Like the sparking wheel.
And I think some of the motivation for some of the characters in this, like she strongly wants to fit in. Vision has questions about what it takes to do that, in terms of that. But she's looking like Westview's getting bigger. It's getting more elaborate. TV got more elaborate in the 60s. Sets got bigger. That we've switched from the 3D camera style to a more, we're getting close-ups in this episode. We're getting like pan shots.
Right.
We're advancing in technology too, the same way that we talked about the previous episode had, a studio audience. We're just advancing in the filmmaking techniques as well. So we're tracking, in other words. Yeah, I'm not. I think it really, again, it's a slightly elevated. Like the acting is a little less exaggerated, but it's still that style. So they're working really hard to keep us in the illusion, and we start to see that crack. And like Erik had said last episode, with little hooks, the hooks are larger this time. They're when Dottie cuts her hand and it's red.
Yeah.
The helicopter and the sword logo and the fact that that's color. And just before she really starts to question it, Agnes appears. Oh, hey, what's going on? It's the star of the show. Breaking the fourth wall, suggesting that character might be who we think she is.
Yeah, really. And she was rumored all along.
Again, we're guessing who's the villain, who's the bad guy. We're not certain that Agnes, but there's some more strong indicators here.
The whole Agnes thing as Agatha Harkness came up really early in the show's run. And again, talking about those fan reactions as the show was airing, this is one that went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And yes. I mean, talking about Agatha as a character in the comic books, I mean, I don't think, I think we all kind of, if she's Agatha, is she not more of a guide character and less of an antagonist? But
she's been many things
that turned out to
Wanda be in the comics. And that's where I'm stronger, more versed in the comics than I am in the sort of the MCU, even though I'm a fan of both. I mean, she first appears in the comics as the nanny of Franklin Richards.
That's right. Yeah.
So that got me excited in terms of we're expanding the MCU, and we know we're going to be including the Fantastic Four and the X-Men.
Oh yeah.
And so that was like, oh wow, for me that was like my gateway into the Fantastic Four, which is some of my favorite comic book stuff. So that's initially where my head was with that, and then then remembering that she briefly mentored Wanda, that she was Wanda's nanny for her twins.
That's right. Yeah.
I started going down that rabbit hole, which was that eventually we find out that she's instrumental in the plot for Mephisto to have his soul, and all that. I don't want to break anybody else's story.
No.
But that eventually Wanda kills her in the comics. you know, and so you just start to go, as soon as you realize that that's who that might be, you start to go down a crazy rabbit hole there.
Well, I'm glad that they didn't kill her, because that would be a terrible waste of a Catherine Hahn.
I was going to say, Catherine Hahn, her acting throughout the series it's a highlight in every episode. Like every scene that she's in, it's, you know, there's something about her. You want to see more of her.
It's true. One thing I didn't like in terms of like rewatching, realizing that Geraldine is actually Monica Rambeau, because it was announced at D3 the year before by Kevin Feige that she'd be playing the character. So it wasn't like I knew who it was right away.
Ooh.
And unfortunately, you know what I mean? Like,
I do.
I would
yeah.
have liked to have a little bit more of the long con there.
Well, that's
I really
that's our
that
fault
character.
as the type of fans that we are,
Fans
who
that we are.
will consume
realistically.
everything
Yeah.
voraciously at that.
Our parents don't catch that detail.
No. Who's this Rambo? Rambo, isn't he in the jungle killing people?
Absolutely. Hey.
Wrong Rambo, Dad.
Rambo with an X.
Yeah.
I also think that children now become a central theme of this episode.
Yeah. Do they?
So, they really do, actually. So the fundraiser is children.
Right.
Well, the idea of children becomes central.
No, absolutely. But it's pushed to the forefront. So Agnes is like, hey, you know, like in the previous
why don't you have
episode,
children? Yeah,
exactly. She was hinting at it, but now she's saying children are your gateway to garden parties and high society.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and so Agnes is now pushing the idea of children on her, and then she, you know, which is probably Wanda's subconscious want for children anyway. And we get to the point where, you know, we're planning a fundraiser for the children, and even to the point where all the people are parroting for the children like robots.
Yeah,
for the children.
yeah.
All of this is for the children.
For the children.
Several times this happens. For the children. For the children.
This is the way.
And can I just interject for a second that we don't actually see children in the series until episode 6.
That's correct.
Yeah, so not to any degree is what I'm saying. I mean, like the other kids,
the other children of Westview.
Right. So, you know, again, going back to that whole subversiveness of the show and wondering, you know, because I really struggled with like how much of this is Wanda's subconscious, you know, in the driver's seat. She's kidnapped an entire town and she's manipulating them, but she's not manipulating the kids until it's brought to her attention that, like you say, kids are the gateway.
Well, if we're talking about Agatha, maybe she incepted the idea of the children into Wanda.
Yeah, it's entirely possible.
So we still don't know who's, at this point, we don't know if Wanda is in control, if somebody's certainly she's doing it, but is somebody controlling Wanda?
Who's driving the car?
Exactly.
Well,
and so I think we're still playing into that.
And that's where I say, like, that's why I question, is the Mephisto thing completely dropped? Because it doesn't necessarily have to stop with Agatha. Can it not be, and we're going to talk about this in episode 9, Wanda, who has essentially locked Agatha into the Agnes character, here's her children. So if we're to believe that Agnes somehow was the conduit, you know, for the children.
For the children.
Who was pulling her strings? So I still think that there's an avenue for a bigger bad to have been behind it.
And as much as we all don't like Hayward,
yeah.
The brand new character, by the way.
Yes. And literally in a TV show that is about meta TV shows, he's the only one with the title director.
Oh, that's true. That's so true. Funny you should say that.
Wow.
Way to pull that one out. I never would have got to that.
That went completely over my head.
Yeah, well done.
The devil's in the details, Bev.
That's not the only place he is.
So, what do we get right this episode?
The magic show was completely charming, and it was super fun for them to be able to, you know, show off their powers in a way that doesn't show off their powers.
I really liked that when Vision went into that town sort of hall security meeting with the rest of the men in town.
Oh, yeah.
He went into it like an Avenger.
Yeah, he did.
He went in like, okay, so how often do we run security detail? You know, what are the biggest threats here? And he literally went into that like an Avenger.
Yeah.
I know these are indeed grave matters.
And they're like,
and then they calmed him down.
Have a donut.
Raspberry or cheese filled?
And who do you think Wanda fed him the gum? Do you think that you think that was an accident? To literally gum him up. He's asking questions. He's starting to question reality.
Yeah.
And the gumming him up belays all the questions for the rest of the episode.
It really does.
So how do we think about how do we feel about that? If Wanda's controlling everything, or if somebody's controlling Wanda, who's driving? Who gives Vision the gum in that moment? I don't eat food.
Oh, neither for me, thank you. I don't eat food.
Well, knowing what we know about Vision, this incarnation of Vision being a byproduct of her love and what Infinity Stone residuals lie within her, I would have to say she's responsible for that.
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so, and I think it might go off better than she expected, which is why she's got to cover. And also, another classic trope is the drunk husband and the wife covering up. Or vice versa.
Yeah,
the slapstick nature of that.
At a time in history where that was funny and not like, oh, you've got
yeah. I think you hit it pretty hard there, Rick. Any missed opportunities?
For this one? No, I don't think so. I feel like these first two episodes, because we're still well into subversive territory where people are still deciding if they like it or not. Even on the second go around, I was like, nope, makes sense to me. It lands where it needs to advance the show. I don't think there were many. We talked about this on The Mandalorian about filler episodes. I don't feel there was any episode of WandaVision that was filler.
No, not at all. It's all stacked.
Yeah,
stacked.
Yeah, it's very. The show is exceptionally good at nuance, and that's where that's where it's at. The whole nuance of everything. That's if you're adept enough to pick that out, what is there to complain about? So no, for me there was nothing. Any
Easter eggs that stick out to you guys before I kind of run through what I got going on here?
No, why don't you kick off with the first one and we'll see if we can pull some more out.
Notice one of the classic TV themes that's not so hitting you on the head is a family trying to keep a secret from the rest of the neighborhood. So think Alf, or or think
I Dream of Jeannie,
or I Dream of Jeannie, or Bewitched. Exactly,
Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Right, trying to keep a secret. So that's another kind of theme and another nod to things. So in the opening, in the animation sequence, we get there's some posters on the back wall. Let me see here. Oh, the first thing we get actually is in the cupboard, under the cupboard, is the Grim Reaper's helmet. Oh, the villain, the Grim Reaper.
Oh,
whose name is Eric Williams, who's the brother of Simon Williams. If I'm pushing any buttons yet, who is Wonder Man. Who in the comics, Vision's brain patterns are
patterned after Wonder Man.
Patterned after Wonder Man.
That's right. Wow.
When Wanda's in the grocery store in the animation, there's there's a Bova milk ad in the back.
Ooh.
Bova is the woman cow who was
midwife of Wondagore.
Midwife
that
delivered her and her brother Petro in Wondagore.
That's way beyond my.
There's another poster in that scene that's basically Auntie A's kitty litter.
Okay.
Which is totally Agatha Harkness.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
And her cat.
Yep.
That totally makes sense.
There's also a poster for Wonder Oats, which is another reference.
Wonder Man.
Wonder Man.
Wonder Man. Yeah.
All in that little scene. The names that they choose for themselves. Okay. In the Magic Act.
Yeah.
Illusion and Glamour.
Yeah.
Glamour is a D&D spell.
That's right.
That tricks people into seeing an
Something
illusion
else. Yeah.
to distract from reality.
Yeah.
There's also another weird one, and I this isn't mine. I don't know. I can't recall where I got it, but this is another weird one. In the Kermit the Frog song, Rainbow Connection, he sings the line, "Visions are also illusions."
Rainbows are visions.
He does too.
But only illusions.
He does too.
This episode overall for me was interesting. I really liked the garden party and the whole idea that, you know, Agnes had a rival in what's her name, the blonde lady, Dawe,
played by Emma Caulfield.
Yeah, I really like that dynamic between the two of them. I thought that was classic.
You think maybe she was supposed to be the Enchantress?
I do.
I didn't pick up enough on that. I didn't catch the Asgardian connection throughout the show, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't there. It just means I was not perceptive enough to pick up on it.
Just based on the fact that we have Wanda getting her powers ostensibly from experiments with Loki's weapon.
Yeah.
Enough of a link to Asgard for me.
Even in the context of the MCU where the staff is an Infinity Stone?
Yeah, no, it's enough.
Well, that's what we're talking about, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And plus the fact that the Enchantress in the Wanda, the Vision and Scarlet Witch 8-part miniseries comic, Enchantress is very strongly
she's featured in that,
villains of that.
Plus, there are only so many witches
that
you can sprinkle into this as an Easter egg.
That is
There's
true.
only a handful.
But even so, I mean, we've talked about this before outside of the confines of this show, where, you know, Thor in his, you know, drawing Yggdrasil for Jane and talking about Asgardian magic and, you know, making a reference to it being science that's just not understood.
It's true.
So to me, that's less of a link for me only because of that explanation. But that doesn't mean that is the way it is. It's another one of those mysteries. Maybe that's a plot thread that'll get picked up in the multiverse of madness.
The other side of that argument is just because you know how it works doesn't mean it's not
that it's
magic.
Not magic. No, you're absolutely right, Eric.
We move into a few other tropes here too.
Sure.
Like beyond our timeline, we get Pleasantville trope.
Oh,
the idea of color in, you know, or the trope, right?
Yeah.
A Truman Show trope when Agnes literally breaks the wall and says "star of the show."
Yeah.
Like hinting at something else. That's a Truman Show reference for sure. And then the idea, sort of, that Wanda is controlling people to, you know, is a Twilight Zone episode reference to an episode called The Good Life, where a young child is controlling all the parents in town, and they're constantly just trying to please him so he doesn't harm them. It's very similar to that. When the radio starts to talk to them.
Oh, right.
Song "Help Me Rhonda."
Help me, Rhonda.
Changes the last bar of it. Changes to "Help me, Wanda."
Help me, Wanda.
For a split second before the voice comes through, which I think breaks Wanda's concentration, and that's why Dottie snaps out of it.
There's a lot of questions about Wanda's control over Westview and how pervasive is that? Because later on throughout the show, we see certainly like her influence is definitely stronger in relation to where you are in reference to where she is, like the physical distancing thing. So cool. And also, I mean, that was the, what am I trying to say? The radio thing, that's we know now that's Jimmy and Darcy trying to communicate through the Westview anomaly. Still super, super cool that it lands on that exact moment.
No, it's exactly. And you get to sort of see that this has been happening for a while in reality, and this has all happened already. And there's a few more that come up like that in the next few episodes.
Right.
And
Don't
also,
step on my flashback.
The last thing I'd like to talk about, I guess, is the commercial.
Yeah, go for it.
For the Strucker watch. And so, you know, I mean, that shouldn't even be lost on people who are casual fans that Baron Strucker is the guy that experimented on the twins to give them their powers in the MCU.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And they even go so far as to put a Hydra symbol on the watch.
Oh yeah. I really like that. I thought it was quite stylish.
And then there's the tagline: "He'll make time for you."
I want that watch. I'm not gonna.
Right, he'll make time for you. There's a huge theme, and that's time. There's newspapers that start to appear, and it's really. I'm gonna hammer on this on my episode 5 tidbit, but there's newspapers that appear, and the references that are on the cover are all to motherhood, and the references that are all on the back are about television or time, and that it's the newspapers are referencing Wanda trying to use television as a way to gain motherhood,
right?
And,
right.
Or what she thinks motherhood might be or mean to her.
I think
possibly there's a fan theory, and I kind of strongly like it, that the two actors in the commercials, are her actual parents.
Oh, I never.
Just a little fan service.
The actors were her parents. The same actors.
That the actors may be her parents.
Oh, yeah. I never even clued that one.
No.
That's interesting. Yeah. So again, I mean, the first two episodes, again, they're to me are the quite literally the most subversive of the whole series, and I think if you made it through this one, you were in for the ride. And I think episode 3 is where it really starts to take off. Did you have any more you wanted to put out there, Hank?
No, that's perfectly it. I think we did pretty good.
Cool.
Yeah, no, there was lots of little, like, upon starting to watch it for more than just the story beats.
Yeah.
Like when I saw the helmet, and I started, pausing things and looking, it just that made it more fun. It made it less about, the story and more about like what kind of prizes can I find as a comic book fan.
So let's just
realizing that they were all through there. That's exactly how I started watching it all.
In your first go around, and I don't remember from our previous shows, but after episode 2, the first time around, were you still in that like, what the hell is this, or were you converted by now?
I wouldn't say converted. Like episode 3 certainly solidified like what, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I do.
I was all in by episode 3.
Yeah,
but I was willing to wait at this. After the first,
I've
10
gone
minutes
this far
when I was almost not willing to wait, and enough of the meat had come, like enough of the story, and there was enough questions, there was enough funny, there was enough serious that it kept me going. Yeah, no, I'll you get one more, and then by episode 3, I was like, okay, give me 50 more. That's fine.
Nice, perfect. All right, then I guess that's it for episode 2. Who's got episode 3?
I have got episode 3.
All right, let's get into it.
Okay, so episode 3, Now in Color. It's 33 minutes long, directed by Matt Shakman, written by Megan McDonnell, and it was released on January 22nd.
Right.
I did not write my own synopsis, so I just got
that's fine.
Wanda's pregnancy fritzes her powers as she and Vision prepare for an accelerated pregnancy.
Oh, yeah.
And this one is really heavy into the Brady Bunch theme.
Right.
But it's also got a bit of the Mary Tyler Moore Show in there.
I would agree with that, for sure. For sure.
In this episode, things are starting to unravel.
Yeah, they are, aren't they?
Like little hints here and there that Wanda's concentration or something is slipping.
I wondered throughout the course of the series, like, how far was the series going to dip into the comic book? And specifically, how far were they going to dip into her split personality? And I wondered if that's kind of what was coming through here. Like, we talked about, was there something else fueling her, fueling Agnes? The flip side of that is this her split personality? One side of her is protecting the children while at the same time manipulating the adults. And in this episode, I was still like, is she losing it? Is she like starting to drown inside her own madness?
It's possible.
That's where I kind of was at with this one.
Yeah, the mirror is definitely starting to crack.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, when Vision's out talking to Herb, Agnes shows up,
right,
and kind of steers the conversation away from don't question what's going on here.
Yeah.
Further, fueling people's theory that she was Agatha.
Agatha. What do we think about him cutting the wall?
I still don't know about that.
I don't know either. I'm still
breaking the fourth wall.
Oh. Is that a stretch? I don't know if that's a stretch. Maybe it's not. I don't know.
It could be literal. I mean, there are certain things where they're being subtle, but they do start to hit us over the head, and it could be the first. That could be the first.
That was my takeaway.
No, it's not. It's strong.
Oh, that's super perceptive on your part, Erica, because I didn't.
It could be the
that.
First actual baseball bat to the head. There.
Yeah,
We're coming out of the subtlety. We're literally cutting the wall. Yeah.
Interesting.
Good call, bro.
Well, that leads us to our next little baseball bat over the head, because when Vision goes in, he says to Wanda, there's something wrong. And this is the first time she visibly rewinds it on him and says, nope, take it again.
I think something's wrong here, Wanda.
Yeah, that's right.
Because that was not the way she wanted it going. So
yeah,
I love the concept of like she's doing different takes. Like back to one, let's try this over.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I like the idea that, and of course, as we find out later on, that whole like you're the part of me that is the the Mind Stone. It really lends itself into like what you said in the neighborhood watch meeting, Hank, about at his core, he's still an Avenger and he's still questioning. He's still wanting to do the right thing, even though he doesn't know why. He just does. And I really like that it starts to shine through here where he starts questioning.
Yeah, that's why he can lift the hammer.
Yeah.
At the end of the day,
he's got that core of goodness.
He's also a super advanced computer whose functions are to solve problems.
Well, I mean,
core,
the Jarvis AI ran, like Tony said, Jarvis, does more than, everybody except Pepper. Do you know what I mean? Like, so at the core of it, there is that aspect.
So as our episode continues here, Wanda starts getting contractions. Like the pregnancy is sped along so fast.
Oh, yes.
And eventually her water breaks and it starts raining in the house.
That was a cool joke.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool visual on that one. I quite enjoyed that.
It's a reference to the things that they could only metaphorically hint at back then.
Yeah.
Say that.
It's the next iteration of the two single beds, like
that's right.
Oh, you're gonna have a baby? Oh, here's the joke. Oh, it's raining.
Yeah. And then Geraldine shows up because Vision has gone off to get the doctor at this point.
Yeah.
And this part they play a lot of the tropes from back then where you would hide an actress's pregnancy with like bowls of fruit or large coats or whatever.
Yeah, do they
ever?
Yeah. You catch the doctor's name, Stan Nielsen. Maybe Stan a reference to Stan the Man, and
possibly.
Nielsen's
it's quite possible.
ratings
Yeah.
group for
Nielsen
the
rating.
Oh,
yeah.
Nielsen.
Rating.
I did catch that.
At this point, though, the stork arrives, which
quite literally.
Yeah,
I love this scene. Actually, I really like this scene.
And then, of course, Wanda uses like a little cloud of red smoke to kind of conceal him.
Yeah.
I didn't know if it was her doing that or if the stork maybe represented, again, the Mephisto connection.
I went there too because she tries to dismiss it and
he's like, no.
Poof, and it's still there. And she's surprised by that. What?
Yeah, why are you not leaving?
I mean, we know now that's, from what episode is it? It's 8.
Yes.
It was Agnes. It was Agnes. Her little theme song.
Oh, that's episode 7.
Is it 7? Yeah. Okay. So, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to go back to that. I'm going to hammer on it. Doesn't mean that there wasn't somebody behind her, Mephisto.
Right.
So yeah, Wanda goes into full labor, and as another trope, she's hiding behind the couch so you don't see anything.
Yeah, you can't see anything.
And Geraldine assists in the birth, and out comes Tommy.
Yeah.
But as this is going on, her powers are just going nuts. Like the house is full on possessed.
Yeah.
Like straight out of Poltergeist.
Oh yeah, that's true. Eh?
Like the vacuum's going off, plates are spinning, stuff on the walls.
That's right.
Somebody call a priest.
Yep. And then Vision shows up with the doctor, but it's too late, technically. And Wanda tells him, I don't care about the rest of them. Meet your son as yourself.
Well, don't you want to meet your son as yourself?
Oh, yeah, that's
so
right.
He demasks full Vision. And,
yeah, that's right.
And it's at that point that kid number 2 is ready to go.
Yeah,
so, out comes Billy.
Yeah. That's exactly how it happened in the comics. Nobody knew that Wanda was pregnant up until the moment of birth. So even when she had the first child, they were like, what? And then a second one came and they were like, double what? Also, her advanced pregnancy, I thought, was sort of indicative of Avengers 200, which is like universally panned by comics fans because Carol Danvers gets pregnant at the beginning of the issue and it gives full birth
and delivers by the end.
And then just
in what?
So I thought it was
16 pages.
Yeah. I thought it was a reference to that.
It may be, given the Rambo connection to Captain Marvel.
Could be.
That's pretty subtle, but still.
I did miss one. When Vision goes to get the doctor, he's about to go on vacation or take the wife off on vacation, but he makes a point of saying, small towns, so hard to escape.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
Saying nobody can escape, right?
For
Did
sure.
Did he say they were going to Tahiti?
Oh, I don't know
I
what he said.
thought that was a reference. I thought I heard him say, "I'm taking my wife to Tahiti," which is a clear reference.
Coulson.
Agents of
Agents
S.H.I.E.L.D.
of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah. Interesting.
But I could be wrong on that.
Hmm.
I rewatched my episodes, not yours.
I'm off Bermuda, baby.
Also, Vision is back now, and Agnes says,
"Is Geraldine inside with Wanda?"
Right.
But I'm suspicious of her. She's not from here.
Oh,
she has no
right,
home.
right.
No family. No husband.
And that puts Vision on a beeline to get in there.
Yeah, and that doesn't end well for her because she gets ejected, right?
Because at this point, I think Wanda's concentration is lost enough.
Yeah.
That
the paranoia.
Yeah.
You can almost use the term retconned. Like,
yeah, I guess so, eh?
You don't belong here. Get out.
You're not part of the show.
Well, she breaks it by saying,
"Can you believe it? Twins."
I had a brother Pietro, and she says, wasn't he killed by Ultron?
He was killed by Ultron, wasn't he?
Yeah, and that ties back into, like, her overall control. Like, she's not fully in control. So is this an element of Agnes, kind of pulling the string where she gives Monica that moment of clarity where she can actually, what?
Which is
I actually think that this one is on Monica herself, because at this point she has passed through the hex, which has already started to alter her DNA. So it might just be her own power giving her that moment of clarity when Wanda is otherwise distracted.
Maybe. But Monica was already in the anomaly when the show started, so
we don't find out until later how she got in.
Yeah.
But, yeah. At this point, the twins are kind of napping, and Wanda reverts to her Sokovian accent and starts singing them a Sokovian lullaby.
That's right.
And, the word Ultron really sets her off. And
what did you say?
That's right, yeah. What did you say?
Yeah, and then we cut away to Vision and Agnes outside.
Yeah.
She came here because we're all...
Stop it!
And,
well, I better get going.
They all come in, and Wanda says Geraldine had to rush home.
Right, because at this point, she's like, you need to leave now.
Yeah, and we don't know where she's gone at this point, but...
Other than she was ejected.
Yeah.
Yeah, the hint is that she's been, retconned.
Dealt with.
Permanently.
Yeah.
Oh, she left, honey.
And then we find out that she has literally been flung out of the anomaly.
Yeah, outside of the anomaly.
And the sort of final straw is the sword pendant that she's wearing, right?
Yeah.
Right.
She says, what is that?
Really makes her snap.
We'll talk about the anomaly itself for a second, and specifically the ejection of Monica Rambeau, and how I'm not 100% clear, and I don't know if this is a hole in the writing or if this is an intentional thing that they'll come back to for some reason. Yes, Monica's traversing the anomaly is the catalyst for her powers to turn her into Photon, Spectrum, next Captain Marvel, whoever you want to call her.
Pulsar.
Her clothes survive the trip out.
Mm-hmm.
They don't change.
No.
They don't change back. They stay period. They stay period clothing outside of the anomaly. It's the only example of that happening.
No.
It's a hugely important part of episode 5, actually, where it's a eureka moment.
It's the only thing that leaves.
So when Vision leaves, he can't exist outside of the anomaly because he's fueled by her.
Fully constructed by the anomaly.
But this is what I'm getting at. If the anomaly is 100% Wanda's powers, then the change of clothing is 100% Wanda's power. So why didn't they change back?
I can explain that. So Monica entered from the outside, so she brought something in that wasn't supposed to be in the simulation.
Sure.
So the simulation changed it. When she left with those clothes, there was no reason to waste the energy to change them back because she wasn't supposed to come back into the... So it was just ejecting waste data.
But the same could be said of Darcy.
Well, at the end of the show, the hex is turned off.
That's right.
So all of the changes are...
Everything reverts back to the way it should be.
Reversed. So it's an active reversal as opposed to Monica's, which was just ejected. So it wouldn't have made sense to waste the energy of the hex to change it back.
I'm still not convinced. I appreciate where you're going with that, but I'm not convinced.
It's an Easter egg that I don't want to get into yet, but it's an episode 5 Eureka moment.
Yeah, I wonder, now that you're saying that, Hank, and I'll just touch on it now, and you can expand on it when it comes around, but is this an indication of, Monica's emerging powers make the clothing immune to that effect?
Could be.
No, it's more indicative of how Wanda is actually operating.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I look forward to touching on that a little bit more, but the floor is yours, Andy.
All right. I got a few Easter eggs here.
Cool.
The opening title, though it is really Brady Bunch themed, the text goes up in the same format as the Mary Tyler Moore show logo with all the colors.
Yeah, that's right.
Hank, you already touched on it, the speed pregnancy from the comics.
Yeah.
Nice, yeah.
The names of the kids that they pick, Billy and Tommy, are
they're
accurate.
Accurate, yeah.
Yeah, they become Wiccan and Speed of the Young Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
Vision drops a Shakespeare quote.
Nice.
And it's all the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players.
Merely players.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
He might be gaining some awareness.
I think by this episode he is.
I agree with that. Like, this is where he really starts questioning his reality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find it interesting that even Wanda's subconscious projection of Vision is incapable of just going along with the scenario without tearing it apart and dissecting it.
Yeah. Cool.
Next one up we got here, when they're painting the baby's room.
Right.
The paint cans are Simser paint, which could be a reference to storyboard artist Jeremy Simser.
Okay,
nice.
That's really deep.
Yeah.
I like it.
Was he a storyboarder on this show?
Yes. Yeah.
That's cool. I like it when shows do that, when they acknowledge people who are not necessarily in front of the camera or, directly part of the production team, per se.
Next one up, when the Vision is getting ready for the babies to come and he's talking to the doll.
Yep.
The doll he's talking to is, I'm pretty sure, a replica of Cindy Brady's Kitty Carryall doll.
Oh.
So there's a deep throwback for you.
Nice piece of connective tissue, though.
Mm-hmm. The commercial this one is for Hydra Soak. Again, for Hydra.
Yeah.
Find the goddess within. So kind of leaning into that, her evolving into what she will become.
Yeah.
But it's also a reference from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 4.
Okay.
Where Coulson refers to their mind control soap.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice.
See, I checked out of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. right after season 1. So,
touche.
Yeah, well done, sir.
This one's not mine. I didn't, but I did read it, and I'm kind of on the fence about it. When Monica comes over, she's like, "I need some Gravity O's cereal with the little marshmallow moon men."
Yeah.
And Monica, being the only person to have, or one of the few people with direct contact with actual moon men.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. And it's funny. Sorry, I just want to touch in the first episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Moon stuff.
Yeah.
That's funny. That's funny.
And then my last one here, they close on the song Daydream Believer by the Monkees.
Oh, that's so true,
and, Wanda is trapped in her own daydreams. So.
Yeah.
There's a couple of those that happen.
I think the whole... Funny you mentioned the Monkees, because I was thinking not only does this definitely leans heavily on the Brady Bunch, but to some degree those other sitcoms of the time, particularly the Partridge Family, and yes, of course, the Monkees. That totally makes sense. Yeah, good episode. I like this. I loved Paul Bettany's stupid mushroom bowl cut in this episode. I thought it was hilarious and so appropriate.
And the clothing too.
Yeah, they were great.
Oh my God.
The tweed jacket, almost like a smoking jacket. And then the high-waisted jeans, like just, oh, okay, yep, he's right in it.
Groovy.
And even, again, with the detail, like the staircase is right out of the Brady Bunch house.
Yeah,
totally.
This is one thing I thought I had picked up on it, and when it came time for Assembled and they spelled it all out, I was like, oh, right, that it is one set continuously redressed, but the same basic layout for every episode. I really, really dug that.
Yeah.
Isn't this the episode where Geraldine or Monica references Quicksilver's death right too.
Yeah, she does. She did. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what sets her off.
He was killed by Ultron. And what did you say?
Yeah, it's like, and that's really the first sort of MCU moment where we're like,
big time,
fully into the where we are in the story and stuff. This could have been from before or after kind of thing.
Yep. Yeah, so that's episode number 3. Anything else anybody wants to say about that before we move on?
I should point out, though, the flower from part 1, the Everbloom, possible, makes another appearance this episode while Wanda's giving birth. It is visible on the side table.
So maybe there is more to that thing, because it came up in my research as well, but I just wrote it off as, it's just a plant. But maybe it's not.
It could be fan service.
All right.
There's a lot of those little nods.
Next time on FandaVision.
This is giving us the reality.
Wanda's subconscious protecting her.
It's pretty cool. Take it back before we go off the rails.
Yeah, we're back.
Oh, that's who's sitting there watching the whole time.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to Fandom Power. Be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Stay tuned for our next episode where we'll be talking about another one of your favorite fandoms. Fandom Power is a Sawcast production.